I am Dr. Sarika, Assistant Professor in Pediatrics, Sardar Patel Medical College, Bikaner, and today we are going to discuss tuberculosis of central nervous system. So if we look at the disease burden, CNS tuberculosis constitutes 1% of total tuberculosis cases and 5 to 10% of all extrapulmonary TB. So what are the various risk factors for CNS TB? They are younger age. If HIV co-infection is there, then there are again more chances of having tuberculosis. Malnutrition is a predisposing factor. Recent measles and pertussis infection also make the child prone to develop tuberculosis. Use of immunosuppressive drugs like tuberculosis cytotoxic agents also make the child prone to develop tuberculosis of CNS, and high disease prevalence in the community is definitely a risk factor for CNS TB. So this picture very well shows the pathogenesis of CNS tuberculosis. So here you can see that aerosol droplets which are containing tubercle bacilli, they are inhaled by the person, and this leads to the tubercle bacilli reaches the alveoli. Here in the alveolar space, it is ingested by alveolar macrophages, and there is formation of granuloma. Then rupture of this granuloma, it leads to release of tubercle bacilli. That is actually again our lymph nodes try to inhibit the further spread of these tubercle bacilli, but some of them escape from this barrier, and they through the blood they reach the brain, and here they form the rich focus, and the rupture of the rich focus may cause CNS tuberculosis. Like here you can see that rupture in subarachnoid space leads to meningitis. So if rupture occurs in subarachnoid space or ventricle, it leads to meningitis. Siegeable inoculation or inadequate cell-mediated immunity causes formation of tuberculoma or tubercular brain abscess. A gene identified that encodes for serine threonine kinase required for invasion of cells lining the brain endothelium is PKND. So we look at the classification of CNS TB, it may be intracranial and it may be spinal, and it may be both. Intracranial tuberculosis may be in the form of tubercular meningitis, serous tubercular meningitis, tuberculous encephalopathy, tuberculous vasculopathy, localized tuberculous meningitis, CNS tuberculoma which may be single or multiple, and tuberculous brain abscess. Spinal tuberculosis may be either osseous spinal tuberculosis or non-osseous spinal tuberculosis. Osseous spinal tuberculosis presents to us as Pott's spine and Pott's paraplasia, and non-osseous spinal TB presents as spinal tuberculoma which causes pressure symptoms, isolated spinal tubercular meningitis which is the meningitis which is restricted only to the spinal cord, and tuberculous radiculomyelopathy which is usually associated with tubercular meningitis. So the pathogenesis of tubercular meningitis. So there is rupture of rich foci and release of the tubercle bacilli in the subarachnoid space that actually provokes a inflammatory response in the host, and that ultimately leads to formation of dense gelatinous exudates, and that causes blockage of CSF pathways. And because of the hindrance in the CSF flow, there is development of hydrocephalus which is a common feature of tubercular meningitis, commoner in tubercular meningitis as compared to pyogenic meningitis, and because of the inflammation of the arteries, it causes vasculitis, and that results in infarction of brain tissue, and cranial nerve involvement may be there. So these infarction and cranial nerve involvement present to us as in the form of say hemiparesis or monoparesis, or there are cranial nerve palsies. So what is the clinical presentation of TBM? The peak age for this type of tuberculosis, CNS tuberculosis, is 2 to 4 years. That is common in younger age group. It has subacute onset. Early symptoms are non-specific. Child may have headache, fever, vomiting, photophobia, loss of appetite, neck stiffness, confusion, and in later stages child may develop coma. He may have hemiparesis, paraparesis, and child may develop cranial nerve palsies, or seizures may be there. So depending on the level of consciousness of the child, according to Glasgow Coma Score, and focal neurological deficits, whether they are present or not, severity of tubercular meningitis is classified in 3. So stage 1, 2 and 3, and this is a modified MRC scale. So stage 1, the patient is alert and oriented. There are no focal neurological deficits. In stage 2, the Glasgow Coma Score is 14 to 10, and it may be with or without focal neurological deficits, or child may have a normal Glasgow Coma Score but he is having focal neurological deficits. And stage 3, there is Glasgow Coma Score of less than 10, and which may or may not be associated with focal neurological deficits. So by the history and physical examination, once we suspect that child may be a case of tubercular meningitis, then how we proceed to confirm our diagnosis? So in this case, every effort should be made to demonstrate tubercle bacilli in CSF, and for that we should go for CSF examination by lumbar puncture. And here I again want to emphasize that we should keep in mind the contraindications of lumbar puncture, because if we don't take care, the child may lose his life. So the contraindications of lumbar puncture are if there is raised intracranial tension, and that we identify by the presence of papilledema on fundus examination. If bleeding tendency is there, then again it is a contraindication, and if infection is there on the local site where lumbar puncture has to be performed, then again it is contraindicated. And what we find in CSF examination in a child with tubercle meningitis, cells are 50 to 500 per ml. They are predominantly lymphocytic. Raised protein, that may be 0.8 to 4 grams per liter. Sugars are low. Early tubercular meningitis may have polymorphonuclear predominance, but please keep in mind that you may also have a normal CSF examination. And here you can see this is the CSF, which on standing shows a cobweb formation, and this is again goes in favor of tubercular meningitis. Then we can go for CSF Zn staining. We can go for bacterial culture, immunocytochemical staining of CSF macrophages for tubercle bacilli. ADA in the CSF is high in TBM cases. Antigen assay, antibody assay we can go for, and we can also go for CBNAT, that is cartridge-based nucleoside nucleic acid amplification technique, that is PCR assay. We can go for the CBNAT assay of CSF, as well as we can go for it in gastric aspirate. And then the expert MTB RIF assay is a rapid test for diagnosing the cases of tubercle meningitis. This test, that is expert MTB, also tells us about the rifampicin resistance. And this is an immunofluorescent assay. So here we can very well see a child who has been operated for hydrocephalus because of tubercular meningitis, and he has been put the VP shunt, and here these MRI films show us the meningeal enhancement and basal exudates and dilated ventricles. These are the dilated temporal horns of the ventricles, and again the basal meningeal enhancement is very well seen, and which is suggestive of tubercular meningitis. Now coming to treatment part, supportive treatment and specific treatment. The supportive treatment includes airway breathing and circulation maintenance, because many children come to us in a comatose condition. So there you have to take care of airway breathing and circulation. IV fluids if required, acid base and electrolyte balance has to be taken care of. Seizures have to be controlled with the anti-epileptic drugs. If there is increased intracranial tension, then that has to be managed with IV mannitol or 3% saline, which can later on we can replace with oral glycerol. Care of a comatose child involves the bowel and bladder care, bed sore prevention and treatment of the bed sores if they are already there, and aspiration pneumonia has to be prevented, so that we can decrease the morbidity of the child. So we throw some light on TBM and HIV. Mortality is higher in co-infection cases, higher number of bacilli in CSF and AFB stains. There are more chances to get a AFB stain positive in HIV co-infection cases. Basal meningeal enhancement and hydrocephalus, they are less common because they are the consequences of cell-mediated immunity, which is already low in cases of HIV infections. And here we don't use steroids because it is not needed. Outcome and prognosis. So you know very well, if child comes to us in early stage, the prognosis is definitely good in most of the diseases. So here also it depends on stage at which treatment is started. The prognosis is bad if child is young age, is malnourished, having hydrocephalus, having focal neurological deficits at the time of presentation, is having a miliary disease, or is co-infected with HIV. Tubercular meningitis is commonly complicated by epilepsy, intellectual disability, and behavioral abnormalities. Mono or hemiparesis may be a sequelae. Child may have cranial nerve palsies. Child may become blind. Child may become deaf. Child may develop hydrocephalus, and there may be hypothalamic disturbances which present us as precocious puberty, obesity, and growth retardation. Now a word about tuberculous encephalopathy. So these children present to us in a state of diffuse cerebral dysfunction, that is child present in coma may have convulsions, involuntary movements and pyramidal signs with normal CSF finding, and this type of CNS tuberculosis is under research. It has normal CSF examination, and it is very difficult to find TB bacilli in these cases, but definitely the child is having cerebral dysfunction.